We're going to talk about growing tomatoes in pots. Growing tomatoes in pots is actually a very easy process. It's the same as growing them in the ground with a couple minor details. One thing you have to remember is a plant will grow. This type of plant is a vine, and it's going to grow as large as the pot that you provide for it. So if you have a small pot, you're going to have a small plant and a small yield of tomatoes. Smaller pots are also going to be more difficult to manage the water. Tomatoes don't like to dry out too much because they will go into shock, and that starts the process of the yellow leaves on the bottom. If you're going to grow a plant on the patio, I suggest your minimum size pot you're going to use will be a 12-inch pot minimum, but the larger the better actually. You can save on potting soil if you fill the bottom of your pot with old leaves or cardboard, and it will also help hold the moisture in. When you get your little plant to plant in the pot, this is really, really important because people always do this wrong. Let's imagine that this is your plant. This is your plant that came in the little cell pack, and these are the roots here. We're going to imagine that little dirt pad right here. Most people plant it in the soil up to the soil line, so the roots are just under the soil just like as they bought it. Well, that's all wrong. That makes for a really gangly, vulnerable tomato. What you want to do when you plant that in the soil is actually plant the plant halfway submerged into the soil, so all the way up to here. So you got half of that plant, the stem is going to be planted in the soil, and what happens is that entire stem then will become a root system and give you a much stronger, much more healthy plant. If you work all day and live in a warm environment and you have trouble with the soil drying out in your pot, on your patio, or on your balcony, one of the cool ways that you can stop this from happening or manage the loss of moisture is by using shredded cardboard. This is a trick that I learned years ago. I kind of made up the process myself, and I just ran pieces of cardboard through a cross shredder and then pile them up on top of my pot. And you have to water this really well initially the first time because the moisture has to, go through the barrier of the cross shred, and the cardboard also has to be put on pretty thick, at least 2 inches at a minimum. But if you look underneath here, the soil is really moist, so it helps to hold it in, and that way the tomato will never go completely dry and it won't go into shock. Next thing you want to be prepared for is that you have a tall enough trellis. This tomato is going to outgrow this trellis very soon. I suggest getting 3 pieces of bamboo and just tying them at the top. That's the easiest way and cheapest way, like this plant right here. You just kind of form a triangle going from the corners, push it down into the soil, and then tie it up at the top with a piece of wire or a stick, and this gives a nice length of about 4.5 to 5 feet for the tomato to grow. And that's about it. You should be able to have a nice harvest. Certain tomatoes do better in pots than others. I suggest smaller varieties, your cherry tomatoes or medium-sized tomatoes. My favorite is a green cherry. The green cherry has amazing flavor and puts out a very high yield. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the box, and I would love to help you grow.